Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of HCTalk. As always, I'm your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today is Julie Hendricks, who is a licensed addiction counselor through Mirror Inc. How are you doing today, Julie?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you, Lance.
Good. For people that are watching, they know that we have done quite a few interviews here. This will be the 6th in a series, and just in full disclosure, I've known Julie almost my entire life. We go back to like 1995, I think, actually.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
To think 30 years now.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
30 years. That's dating us.
Running the streets and running them up.
Yes. In our past lives, when we were both out there doing things we probably should not have been doing, we knew each other. So this was, I was really excited when I reached out and asked you to be the final interview to conclude this for a couple different reasons. I'll just tell the audience now. Julie and I talked about this. I really wanted to have somebody on the program who has experienced some long-term recovery, has gone back to help people who are currently in their addiction or actively in recovery or back and forth, as it seems like that happens sometimes, sadly. And then not only that, but uniquely, you're a licensed addiction counselor that really has gotten into the trenches to be able to not only just help people, but use an education and life experience to change lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the other thing that's really neat for me is, like you said, we're in the streets together doing things shouldn't have been. And so to come full circle and be sitting across the table as healthy adults, making good choices and stuff, that's really cool to see as well, because we could both be in such different places right now. Yeah. So it's really neat to be right here with you, of all people. Yeah,
well, and especially when you talk about Defy and some of the statistics with that, when we were teenagers, and I mean, this is really what it goes back to, is teenage years, right? Yes. We didn't, I don't remember any kind of real entity that does what Defy does, and letting people know at a young age, if you choose to go down this path, that you're statistically at a greater risk of never coming out, right? So I was thinking last night when I was just decompressing over the day, and I was just thinking about the interview today and what I might ask, and memories of our youth and stuff, and I just the one thing that came to me over and over again was, we made it, Julie.
Yes,
we made it.
We made it somehow. Barely. We made it. And that's what matters. Yeah. Because then we can show others that it is possible. And you mentioned Defy, and that is a wonderful, wonderful concept, and it's awesome what they do. But you're right, that is a newer thing. Back when we were younger, it was DARE, the DARE program. But that really wasn't, it was like one officer kind of telling us, if you do drugs, you'll die.
I call it the SCARE program.
Yes.
Their program is, to me, the SCARE program. And what they did was, which, God bless their heart, the program, the everything, this if you go down this is bad. Yes. Well, then when you start to experiment and you start with these gateways that many of us know about, which is maybe drinking a little bit of alcohol, well, that didn't kill me. Or smoking a little bit of weed, well, that wasn't, I'm not dead. Right. And then because of the way that program was impressed upon the youth, it almost appeared, in my opinion, was, well, they're just trying to scare me. Mm-hmm. And then it just led me down to, well, I guess what they said was really true. In the end, it was true. But I just don't know about the delivery. It wasn't education in as much as it was scare tactics. So...
Yes, and of course, those things change in time as we learn new things and concepts and develop new programs and whatnot. That stuff changes. So, what we do now is way different, thank goodness, because it seems to help more. Yeah. And
you know what? No fault to the past, right? Because all we can say is that there was an effort to actively try to dissuade youth from going down that path. that is the way they did, and then from there we learned and grew, and now we do something different. But as we do on the program, I don't want to sell you short on it. I always ask people where they hail from, where'd you go to school, what kind of things and activities did you like doing while you were there. Take us back to 1990s, Julie.
Oh my goodness. So I grew up in Heston, born and raised in the area. Went to Salina Central for 1 year, but spent my time in Heston, and did not graduate, interestingly. Senior year, got expelled at first semester. So, I mean, really, if we're being honest, what did I enjoy doing? Skipping school and making bad choices.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was our
really.
Yeah. Did you play sport? I mean, if you call running from the cops a sport, I mean,
yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Hide and seek,
hide and seek champion. Yes, good at a foot race. But I mean, I played sports in middle school and stuff. But by the time I got to high school, I was just over it.
Yeah. Okay. So, so you had mentioned you being expelled, right? And obviously that is never a good thing, to have a lack of structure, and of course then followed by, I mean, we at the time we thought, well, high school's for the birds. Who needs high school? I'm not learning anything here, right?
Right.
Type of thing. But looking back at that point in time, do you remember where your mind was at that time when all of that was going on, and you were out there just choosing to do your own thing, whatever that might be? Obviously, mom and dad didn't know what they were talking about. School didn't know what they were talking about. Where was your frame of mind at that point in time? What were you thinking? Well,
I think, like a lot of teenagers, I thought I knew more than everybody else, and I knew what was best for me, and nobody was going to tell me what to do, and nobody was going to tell me where I had to be or when. And so that, I mean, obviously was not the best thing, but most teenagers go through a defiant phase, and I just took it to the next level, to the extreme. And so at that point, when things kind of fell apart there at school, I thought, well, didn't want to be here anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of did me a favor. Ended up not having to serve like the 2 million hours of Saturday school and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, cool. I don't want to be here. Now you're telling me I can't come, so where's the loss?
Right.
But yeah, so at that point, though, it took years for me to realize that was not the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I did take many years before I re-engaged in the education system and started making better choices and whatnot.
Okay, so tell me about that. I'm a fan of education. went back to school. Did a trade school early on. I say early on, but in my 20s, because of course I had to suffer from my life's experience and choices of the same mentality and worldview and mindset as you. I mean, we're two peas in a pod when it comes to that. I didn't want to listen to nobody. Nobody knew anything more than I did. My peer group was more important than anything else, and we were all running down we were all in the car driving into the ditch together. Okay.
Yes.
So with that being said, you said there was a period of time before you. I'm gonna say this. Woke up, right? Reality hit. Worldview changed. Even if you want to look at it as brain development, that frontal lobe finally got there, and you're like, wait a second. Where I'm at is not where I want to be. So just kind of talk to me about your education, or tell the audience about your path to how you became a licensed addiction counselor, and then why?
Yeah. So when I decided to go back to school, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. It was just, something has to change. I can't live like this anymore, and I need to do something to better myself. Part of that was that I needed stability in my life, but I needed to be able to provide that stability for myself. I didn't want to have to depend on anybody else. So I went back to school. Originally, law school is where I was going. Had the most amazing law school advisor. up in Washburn, just fantastic. So I ended up getting, if I get it right, 2 associate's degrees and a certification through Hutch, and then transferred to Washburn and was going to do the law program there. And what happened was, I was interested in the addiction side as well, just from my past and what I'd been through and experienced. And the classes for the 2 programs, some of them overlapped. Yeah. And then you have to take electives. And so I would take the addictions classes as electives for the law program. So it just worked out really well for me.
Yeah. Because electives are, generally speaking, where your interest is at. Yes. Right? You have to take required courses, but if you have an elective, that means you pretty much get to choose, and you get so many in a certain category. So I'm thinking like psychology, sociology, and then it was, an emphasis in addiction of some kind or whatnot. So then you just found yourself gravitating towards those classes.
Exactly. And so I ended up doing those classes. Partway through my education experience, my law school advisor passed away suddenly. And that was a huge loss for me. Just a huge blow. And, that didn't change my perspective. What really changed my path was internships. So I did an internship in law, and it was amazing. It was wonderful, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for the person who so graciously allowed me to come in and follow them around. But what I saw was that it was all punitive. It was all, there's no person here behind the crime, and how do we punish them? How do we, it wasn't about the underlying issues. It wasn't about, what we could do to help these people become better. And so that just didn't sit very well with me. And so my new advisor had suggested that I try to do an internship with an addictions facility. So ended up at Mirror and did an internship there and was like, holy smokes, this feels better. It just felt so much more right, because at the end of the day, most I'm not going to say all, but most of those crimes that I was seeing, it was not just people being jerks for no reason. It was fueling an addiction, or stealing groceries for their children, different things like that, and so much addiction involved in it. And I just thought, how do we help these people? Locking them up doesn't fix that problem. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in this field. And
I got to ask, I've noticed that over the years, the justice system, especially when it comes to addiction and recovery, are becoming more aware. And then there's a desire, even at the state level with state legislation, that we're noticing and realizing that what you're saying is actually true. That 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say it's got to be that high. It might be higher, might be lower, but I'm going to say 9 times out of 10 that when people are committing crimes, that it usually 9 times out of 10 goes back to either an underlying mental health situation, yes, a addiction situation, being a child or a close family member of someone who's in addiction. And so then if we never try to focus on the addiction aspect and help people in their recovery, then this is just going to be a revolving door. And I just got to say, I'm humbled by how you articulated what you saw when you saw it, and then how you made the decision in your own life where your heart was at to be able to try to go upstream instead of be downstream. Justice system, you're going off the waterfall. Yeah. Right? Anything goes. It depends upon where you're at, county, state, what the laws are. You're just going over the Niagara Falls in a barrel and hoping for the best, really.
Right.
But if you're going back upstream and you're telling people, hey, there's a waterfall up there, and it's not gonna look pretty. Here's here's a line, here's a life vest, here's whatever I can do. So, speaking of that, do you think that maybe, and I don't know, just if you had been there, and you can adopt the mentality, I got out, and then you find yourself in an educational setting, you do an internship with Mirror, you see that this is an organization that actively wants to help people. Where is purpose is coming to my mind? Did in your life did you see that as, this is my purpose, this is my calling?
It felt that way, very much so. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you remember, but in high school there was one class where we got to do job shadowing or something. So basically we got credit to not come to school. So of course I was all over that. And I job shadowed the VP of Mirror back in high school. And so it was kind of this full circle, things kind of falling into place type of thing. And it went from, I'm going to be an attorney and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to just really make things happen, to, oh no, I need to feel good about myself and I need to feel good about what I'm doing and offer hope to other people. And I will say you were right. The justice system has really come around. And what I have seen happen here in Harvey County is so amazing. The judges we have on the bench right now, they're wonderful. When drug court was first being talked about, I was asked to be a part of the team that built that. And so I put the work in and helped build drug court originally. I also have been going in and out of the jail for the past 10 years now, doing assessments and helping people go from incarceration to treatment. Recently, I started another avenue in the jail doing the Waymaker program. So I run the Friday morning clinical groups at the jail, and that has been so great because we're really meeting people where they're at. It's a captive audience and they want to learn and they want to do better and they're sober at that point. So we're getting that clear mind that's thinking. But the graciousness of the jail to allow us to come in, because that's their house. They don't have to let us in.
Yeah, security and the whole thing.
Absolutely. So the graciousness of them to allow us to come in and offer that is just amazing. And I can't say that they wouldn't have allowed it 10, 20 years ago, but just seeing how much more open they are now to that kind of thing is great. Yeah. And the judges as well, like I said, understanding addiction a little better and working with us in terms of, this person did XYZ. There was drug abuse happening at the time. How about if we let them have a chance at treatment and making better choices rather than just throwing them away somewhere? And so that has been so cool to see and be a part of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to get into some of that just because you threw a lot at me there.
Yes.
But so you had mentioned about doing your internship with Mirror there, and I'm guessing in Topeka?
No. So when I decided to get my life together, I was living in Heston. I was in a very abusive relationship, and it just kind of all happened at once. It was like, I can't be in this relationship anymore. I can't keep using substances. I can't keep living like this. And so it's like I changed everything all at once, and right away enrolled in college. And so actually I went to WSU for a semester. And in that first semester of college, became pregnant with my oldest. And so then had to kind of adjust things. So I went to Hutch and did some classes here in Newton, some online. But my Washburn education was like 99% online.
Okay.
And so, I was working, had a child to provide for, had to take care of myself, and doing schoolwork while baby was sleeping.
Basically working 2 jobs.
Oh my goodness.
I think people underestimate the amount of time that it takes to study, research, do it, to adequately get good grades, and people that haven't been there.
Right.
There's a mutual respect for people that have, right? Like when you say, I got an education, I was working full time, or I was even working part time, and I had a child, it's like, well, you don't have enough hours in the day for that one.
You don't. And on top of that, you add in, for a while there, I was working, I was doing the full-time school thing, and I was juggling an internship. So, from sun up until way past sundown, I was making it happen. Is that how I would suggest everybody do it? No. Yeah. But I did what I had to do because I knew something had to change. And this was what I wanted, and I was going to do it.
And I have a saying I always say is, idle hands are the devil's playground, right?
Yes.
And I know that in recovery, one thing that is very important is for people to fill up that idle time, whether that's go for a walk, whether that's go exercise, whether that's bake something, whether that's whatever it is, to keep the mind occupied, to keep the hands occupied. Because when you have that downtime, that down moment, that's when your brain starts working on you. And then, of course, is where I think people become susceptible to falling back into that addiction. You're too busy to think about how you're doing. You're just doing, right? So another thing. So the internship was here in Newton. I'm going to say. Okay, so from that internship, I guess how much longer after that internship did it take for you to earn your clinical licensing?
So, I'll clarify that I don't have my clinical license.
I did that right. So, you're a licensed addiction counselor.
Yes.
My apologies.
Nope, you're fine. Yeah. There's a second C that you can earn, which is a master's level. And, people are always asking me, why haven't you done that? Well, because I want to work with the people. So I'll throw that out there.
Yeah.
To me, if I did that, I could make more money. I could step into like a supervisor, clinical management role. But I want to be feet on the ground. Yes. And I want to be in the front lines working with the people. And so would it be worth the time and money? No, not really. Not to me. But my internship was like the last thing I did. So I finished my mirror internship and that last semester, that May, and graduated with another bachelor's and 2 more certifications. In total, I have 6 college degrees and certifications, which, for somebody who didn't graduate high school, I'm pretty proud of.
Yes, that's amazing.
But yes, so I finished in May. And right away, they told me at that time, there was one counselor running the entire outpatient program. And they told me that they would find a way, create a position if I wanted to come on as a second for outpatient. And I think it was August, maybe, when I said, okay, let's do it, because change is scary, and I'm one of those people where if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it.
Right.
And I didn't want to change a whole bunch of stuff. I was terrified. So it took a couple of months. It wasn't forever and ever, but it also wasn't instant because I had to kind of convince myself that I could do it.
Yeah. Okay, so how long have you been with Mirror now then?
Okay, so I was with Mirror for 3 years. And then I went to SAC and was with SAC for 3 years. And I've been back with Mirror. August 2nd was my 4 years.
Okay, so then you've been doing this almost a decade.
Yes.
Okay, so you've been boots on the ground. Your passion is helping people in recovery, in their addiction, in what many would consider who are there, but also who don't necessarily understand it completely, but may have a loved one. I mean, in all ways that you can look at it, in any worldview that you can look at it, you've been there in doing battle with people for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely have. And one thing that I have found, we talk about gateway drugs and stuff, and you said something earlier, and I'm not recalling exactly what it was, but there's usually an underlying trauma that leads to the decisions that we make. And so addressing those issues, the river scenario, what is causing those people to jump in? And a lot of times it's not just they're using. There's a trauma or something that led to that path. And so being able to kind of dig through some of that, unpack that baggage, and be healthy all around, because addiction's not just about using. There's a lot of things that go into that.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
I've said this before on some of the other podcasts that we did in this series, and this is something that I try to wrap my head around, and I guess I'm looking for a confirmation from you and your education and experience. But it's, trauma, some kind of trauma, or some underlying mental health, or, sometimes it's peer pressure, but we could even interpret that through, once again, trauma or mental health, right? This overwhelming need to be accepted by your peers, that you would do something to yourself in order to gain acceptance is, a loose definition, but it might be a mild situation, but one that it needs to be corrected. That I call it right thinking. So right thinking is sober thinking, right? So I don't monologue here, but one thing that's very concerning to me, and what I see in my limited capacity, is there might be a trauma or some underlying mental health, or what I just specified as an example, but I have the analogy of digging a hole. Right? We begin to dig that hole in our addiction, and then when we are making choices in our addiction while under the influence, then that is just a mechanism to create more trauma, more mental health. So where this situation might have happened, which first was the first trauma, or maybe some minor traumas or whatever that a youth didn't know how to deal with because the family unit was not in a position that it should be, or whatever the case may be. There's 1,000 things we could put under the umbrella of trauma. Right. That then, now that I'm using, then while using under the influence, I allow people to do things to me, or I do things to other people that then creates more trauma. And then that's more trauma. And then eventually, as you go down this road of addiction, then, especially if it's a serious addiction, then you have now created an environment where you are just traumatizing yourself repeatedly and allowing other people to traumatize you, so that hole gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and the way out becomes more difficult. Is that a true statement? Is that, correct me if I'm wrong in what I'm learning about this, Julie.
So, sure. Short answer, absolutely, Lance. But think about that hole you're digging. The deeper it gets, you have to get into the hole to continue digging it. And if you're in a hole, what do you see around you? You see nothing but darkness and that dirt and that hole. And the only thing you have going on there is the digging. And so you don't see the trauma happening. You don't see all of that stuff going on. You are so hyper focused on that hole that nothing else matters. Nothing else is happening around you. And those traumas that happen, we don't see them as traumas. It's survival. We aren't out there making horrible choices because, hey, it's cool to have trauma. We're just trying to survive. And if X, Y, and Z is what gets me my next high, which then helps me forget X, Y, and Z, then so be it.
This is so hard for me. I just gotta
it is
over this because I have loved one,
yes.
a special person to me. I have had loved ones, and then I've experienced it myself, right?
Yes.
So it's difficult for me, and it's very heavy on my spirit because the only thing I can say right now is so many times I've looked at people who I love and care about, and I just ask them the question, how can you do this to yourself?
Right.
Why would you do this to yourself? Don't you see what you're doing to yourself, what you're allowing other people to do to you, right?
And the answer is no. I think...
But where's the real moment? I mean, is there ever a point when somebody looks up, and I know we're going into the weeds right now, but I'm getting passionate about this, and I'm just asking, like, is there a point? Like, for me, there was a moment of clarity, right? A moment of clarity that said, I did X, Y, and Z. This is the path that I've taken, and this is where it has led me.
Right.
And I don't like where I'm at, okay? And I don't ever want to be here again. I want to change whatever I need to change and do whatever I need to do to be able to never put myself in this situation again. And I was smart enough to realize, or I had somebody tell me, or whatever the case may be, because not saying smart enough to realize that that would be like saying that people that don't realize it are dumb, and I'm not saying that.
Right.
But in my own life, I had I'll call it a moment of clarity, which is, this is what led me here. Never again.
Right.
Never again. And so
we talk about people hitting their rock bottom, and that can look different for everybody. For some people, it's, they lost a job. For other people, it's they've lost family, they've lost their freedom, they've lost, all this other stuff and had all this trauma and stuff. There's a rock bottom. Everybody is different. And one of the hardest things is to love an addict who is in active addiction. It is so hard because we can't love them out of it. And we have to set healthy boundaries for ourselves so that we aren't being harmed in any way while we are loving them, sometimes from a distance. If love could save everybody, then we wouldn't be here. At the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that there's hope. There's hope for everybody. It's just a matter of when they see that. We can't force that on anybody, and we can't, convince them otherwise. They have to get to that point on their own. But we can love them, and we can be there when they realize it and are ready, and say, okay, you're ready. Here's what we can do to help you. All while maintaining our own healthy boundaries and our own selves.
Yeah.
So it is hard. It's hard to love somebody who's going through that.
Yeah.
I understand being torn there. I understand that pain and that difficulty. But there is hope, and there's hope, for that person. There's also hope for, us on the outside looking in. And a lot of times we see that person for who they were when we met them, or in times when they were sober and doing well. And so that's what we hold on to, is that we know they have this potential. We know that they can be and have been this person, and that's what we want for them.
Yeah. And I've said this on during this series too, is the fact that each and every one of us probably have an immediate family member or somebody very close to our immediate family, or a friend, someone close to us that we do in fact love, right? Whether it's a brother, a father, a mother, a cousin, we all have somebody that we love who has suffered or is suffering through their addiction. And love is a tricky thing, right?
It is.
Because I've truly believed that one definition of love is perspective, and that is that we see the best of that individual through the lens of love. It's like kids, right? I mean, our kids, they can be crazy, And everybody around us looking at it like, my goodness, this kid is crazy. But we don't lose our cool. You know, we love them, right? So we see and have the connection through that emotion and that perspective to look at that individual in the best light. So yes, even though, you know, my son stole from me and has run us through the entire ring, and that's not my son. I'm just putting that into perspective. Thank God, you know, I haven't had to experience that with my children. But they're by the grace of God. But I know what kind of a son I was, you know, and it wasn't a good one, you know, at some point. And my parents loved me, right? So they were looking at Lance, their son, not Lance, the addict, when everybody else who didn't have that perspective, and I think that goes back to the justice system, as you were talking about, and where they've changed from being punitive to, you know, it's like the justice system is not a person, it's an entity, right? It's a bureaucracy. So then to see people as human versus see them as the crime they committed is... Okay, so I'm getting into the weeds. I don't want to do that. So going back to, you had mentioned that, I think you had mentioned your current capacity with MIR, but when they opened up another position for you to be a licensed counselor with the residential outpatient treatment facility, what were your aha moments? What were some aha moments where you were green in that, and then you've gone through a period of time there? What's like something that you can give the audience that would have been considered like an aha moment, a worldview change, or something that maybe they can take away from understanding you, your capacity, the people you help, and maybe the outcome?
So I think for me, a big thing was trying to be for others what I needed, what I lacked in terms of support or love or kindness, that sort of thing. And thinking, you know, if I can provide for some people what I was missing, maybe that can change things. And I do think it's very important to see that we're all humans. Addicts are not just addicts. You know, there's a difference between the person, the addiction, and then the crime. And, you know, sometimes, yes, they all collide together, but we're all people. We all have feelings and that sort of thing. And so I think it was a matter of realizing that, hey, there were things that I was lacking and I can provide that to other people. And then realizing too that it wasn't, because I was terrified, Lance. I thought, oh my gosh, even all this knowledge from school, and sure, I have a license and this and that, I was still terrified. I thought, what if I don't use the right clinical term, and then somebody, you know, feels some kind of way and goes and does this or that, and I don't know if I can deal with that. And what I found was they don't care. Nobody wants to hear the clinical terms and the book terms and whatnot like that. They just want somebody to listen to them and have some compassion. And in my experience, the most common thing that anybody asks me is, are you in recovery? Because it turns out that they don't care if I have an education or a license or anything like that. They care that I can understand firsthand where they're coming from and what they've been through. And once I realized that, it was like, I can help and I can make a difference. And it's not scary like I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, it goes a long way to be able to sit across from somebody and it's like mutual shared experience, right?
Yes.
So if I'm telling you all about this experience that I had, and I'm seeking some kind of help for that, if you haven't, not to say anybody who's doing what you do has a lack of credibility, because I'm not saying that,
right?
But for somebody that is truly seeking help, understanding that you were sitting in the same seat as me. And I found that to be quite interesting, that there is something about the psychology of human beings, right? In my education, it's in psychology, it's in communication, any of the liberal arts or what I would consider personal degrees, like what you're talking about,
right,
is mutual shared experience is so impactful for people to identify with one another, which is the first building block of a relationship, which then from there can build into something more, right?
Right. And it's really neat to be able to sit down with somebody and say, hey, I was in that situation and I was in that relationship with that person and I was using these substances and I did X, Y, and Z too. And now look at me. Like, there is hope. There's a path here that we can go down and make changes. And that's really cool to be able to participate in.
Yeah. Okay, so what are you doing with Mirror now? You had mentioned it, I think, but just for the audience, in your capacity with Mirror, what is your day-to-day look like?
So my typical day, I am an assessment counselor. And so what I do is meet with clients and do a substance abuse evaluation and determine clinically what criteria they meet, what level of care they fall into the category for, and then have those discussions of, okay, this is where you fall clinically. Here are the services I'm recommending. Where would you like to go? How can I help you set that up? Are there other things? Because sometimes there's other issues, do you need a referral for mental health? Do you need sober living options? That sort of thing. I also do the Waymaker program in the jail. So usually twice a week, I do an average of 3 assessments in the jail per week, and I do that one day. And then Fridays, I go in and run a clinical group where we're doing skill building and problem solving and processing and stuff with the inmates.
So tools. You're
yes.
You walk into the job site, let's say, for another analogy, and you have all the tools necessary to help that person do the job, right? And the job in this situation is, how do we get you help? How do we get you to the point where you're on a path to recovery, whether that be... So do you ever, speaking of assessments and sitting across from somebody and they're, you said you go into the jail or whatever and do that. So of the people that you give an assessment to, when they're in that moment, how often do you think that is a place in which they will communicate to you honestly where they're at, in the hopes that they will get the help that they need?
So most people are pretty honest. I don't know what kind of percentage I would put on that. 90, 95 maybe. I don't know for sure. But I feel like most people are pretty honest. And I say that because of the things that they will share. And if I wasn't being honest, I wouldn't say share some of the things that they share.
Correct.
And so I think most people genuinely want help. They just don't know where to go or how to go about it, or they think they can't afford it, or, I don't have insurance, so I can't get help, and those sorts of things, which absolutely not true. So I think most people are honest. And interestingly enough as well, people who are like justice system referred, so who are told you got to do treatment or you're going to go to jail, whatever it might be, that might be a little extreme. But
well, you got to get help.
Right.
Or if you're not trying to help yourself in some way and show us you're trying to help yourself and be at this avenue, because obviously if you're having an addiction, and then the next step would be some kind of treatment to help yourself to get the tools necessary to not then be in your addiction, therefore come back to the end result of what got you here, right? So,
exactly.
So yeah, there's like there's a science there, you know, common sense science, right?
Yeah, but those people are not any less likely to be successful. Plenty of people are, quote unquote, forced to come to treatment and end up being successful. Yeah. And that's neat to see. It's always really cool to see that aha moment in somebody. And I'm not talking about rock bottom, I need to change. It's the moments where they've been attending, they've been doing the work, and they're just kind of like, grudging through it. Because, we all hit that point. I'm talking about the moment where something clicks, where something is said or whatever it might be that clicks, and they just kind of are like, wow, okay. That happens, and it's really, really cool to see. And it doesn't matter if they come in off the street because they want help or they come in because probation said you have to. They all find those moments.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question, and this is a challenging question. I'm just going to say this, and I mean this in no negative way. I just want to preface that to say that I'm not being negative about any of the hard work that's being done. I'm a part of CCRT because I truly believe that if someone wants to change, they need support. They need to be offered the tools and the education and the awareness and the treatment and the like if you want to change, many people need help. That ladder, rung by rung to crawl out that hole. It's not just to pull you out with rope. I've used that analogy before, and I almost think that a ladder is a better analogy because it takes one step at a time, and sometimes one's happens a little faster than the other, but as long as we're moving up that ladder to get out of that hole, then that's the end goal, because then that allows and empowers somebody to live their best life, to be the best person that they can be to themselves, to their loved ones, to their children, to their whomever, right? The world around us. But having been in this group of people that are actively trying to go in to the river and pull people out, however that might be, I struggle because I have seen people that I had really high hopes for, right, to be successful, and then they're not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see that. So I guess I want to say or ask, do people really recover, Julie?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. I can think of so many people over the years that I've worked with that are still in recovery and are doing fantastic things. I can think of so many of them. And, in addiction, so many people are affected. And if we look at those that continue that cycle or that we lose to the battle, we can become so overwhelmed by that why would anybody continue to try to help? And so, I have to remember that one life is worth it. If I save one life or help one person save themselves, then I've had a successful day, week, year, whatever that might look like. It comes down to every single life is worth it. And so if we can save one, we're doing the best that we can. And we don't give up on people. Boy, we've had some people that come back over and over and over again. And I've had people that I worked with as an intern 10 years ago that, even in the last year or so have come back through. And we don't tell them, you've already hit so many treatment episodes, we can't see you again. Like, too bad. We don't do that, because at some point, as long as they're showing up and they're trying, hey, we're doing something here.
Yeah. So it comes down to perspective.
It does. It is all about perspective. And if you choose to look at it in a negative light, then it is going to eat you alive. It is going to drown you. And I don't know, if I dwelled on all the negative and all the loss and all the bad stories and whatnot, I don't know how I would maintain my own recovery. So you have to have a perspective of hope and love and compassion.
Yeah. There's an analogy that just came to my mind, and I've heard this a couple times before, so I hope I tell this story correctly, but it just dawned on me here. There was a father and a son who were walking down the beach, and the tide was coming in, right? It was waving in, and they saw somebody else there that were taking starfish that were getting washed up onto the shore, and there was hundreds and hundreds of starfish up on the shore, and he was just going around and throwing them back and throwing them back and throwing them back frantically. And the father and the son came upon him and said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm trying to save the starfish. And they said, look at all of them. There's no way you're going to save them all. And his response was, well, if I can save just one, just one. And that's the mentality.
Absolutely.
That's the passion. That's the why behind why Julie is not an attorney today.
Yes. And I'm not dogging on attorneys because
I'm making a joke. Yeah.
I know some amazing attorneys.
I mean, we all need one, right?
At some point, yes, we do. I know some amazing attorneys who really get it and who really go to bat for these people and have great compassion and whatnot. That was not the path that was right for me. Interestingly enough, though, my oldest is kind of following in that path, and she's in pre-law school now. Cool. So I think I have prepaid for the last 18 years for for future legal needs. But we all have to find our own path, and mine just kind of took an abrupt left turn, and here we are.
Yeah. So I got a question. How many years sober are you today?
So today I am 19 years, 1 month, and 4 days.
Congratulations, Julia.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Amazing. And I'm so proud of you, and I am thankful that you made it out and that you are going back to change lives in all that you do. And it's humbling to me, and I'm very appreciative that you're somebody who just makes that your why, makes that your life's purpose. It's humbling, Julie, to be honest with you.
And it's great to see you as well. I'm very proud of you too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just here.
Who would have thought?
Given my history,
Yeah. Who would have thought the two of us would be sitting here,
Yeah. It's amazing.
In sobriety, having these conversations and sharing information like that,
and hopefully helping people in our own capacities. That's why I'm doing this series, is because just create awareness and create communication, and hopefully people see this, and those that aren't understand more, and those that are understand more, and then those that haven't gone down this path realize that, man, this is just hope somebody hears something throughout these interviews that makes them think, that changes their perspective, that helps them understand, that educates them, the whole thing. And I'm glad that you are number 6.
Well, thank you.
That's great. Okay, so we are coming to the end of the program. One thing that I always do is I give the guests the last word to speak directly to the hearts and the minds of anybody listening. You can say whatever you want, Julie.
So I guess I would just tell people, of course, there's hope. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. There's strength in reaching out for help and building that community and that foundation for recovery. And don't think that you're too far gone, or that you've messed up too much, or that you can't afford it, or whatever it might be. We'll work with you. There is hope. And so I would encourage anybody struggling to reach out.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Lance. I appreciate you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely, and thank you for taking me up on the offer.
Yes.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Just want to tell everybody thank you for listening to this episode of HC Talk. As always, I was your host, Lance Gormley, and our guest on the program today to finish up this 6-part series on recovery, addiction, and hope is Julie Hendricks, who's a licensed addiction counselor from Mirror Incorporated. Have a good one, everybody.